Hey Scooby-Doo fans, it's Professor Joel coming at you from planetscooby.com. Professor of what, you might ask? Well, a professor of Scoobology. And this is episode number 2 of my series where I review Scooby-Doo episodes. In this episode, we're reviewing the episode Harum Scarum Sanitarium, which is episode 7 of the Scooby-Doo/Dynamite Hour, and it aired on October 23rd, 1976. This episode has always been pretty close to my heart as it takes place in Canada, and that's where I am located, and that's where I keep all my stuff, like my crayons, my Silly Putty, and my Lego minifigures. I also love the main villain of this episode. I love the design of him, and he goes by the name of Dr. Coffin, or actually I should say the ghost of Dr. Coffin. If you're interested in buying this episode, I totally recommend buying the complete Scooby-Doo/Dynamite Hour. I'll buy it through the link I leave below in the description, and I make a cool 30 cents after tax, of course, which doesn't seem like much, but hey man, it's 30 cents that gets me closer to buying another sweet box of Scooby snacks.
So Harum Scarum Sanitarium, what does that even mean? Well, to start off, a sanitarium is a place, it's kind of like a private hospital meets a hotel. It's a place where they treat long-term illnesses in the past. For example, in Canada, we would treat tuberculosis. Currently today, though, because we've conquered those diseases, it's more of a term, it's just like pretty much a nicer way to say mental hospital. And then Harum Scarum, well, that just means a reckless person, or in this case, a ghost. So Harum Scarum Sanitarium, in this case, means the reckless ghost of the mental hospital.
So let's review this episode. And if you haven't seen this episode, well, there's going to be spoilers galore. Episode starts off on a dark and stormy night. Hopefully the gang had a nice sunny visit in Niagara Falls, but their night isn't so nice. We got a lightning storm happening, and they're driving down this dark road, and Velma realizes they're lost. And this is in the day and age, of course, where you didn't have GPSs or mobile phones. So, because it's nighttime, Shag and Scoob, they're already kind of nervous. You got the thunder and lightning happening, just making them super cagey. And they come to a roadblock, and it's run by a friendly Canadian border patrolman who goes by the name of Officer Oldfield. He's asking them, hey, what the heck you guys doing here? You know, what's going on? Shaggy explains they are tourists, to which Scooby shows off like a totem pole and a pair of ice skates and this hat that I don't really get how it's Canadian. And Officer Oldfield, he sets them off down Forester Road. He says, you know, take this road, but it comes to a fork, it might get tricky for you. Take the left fork. The right fork, he warns, that's going to bring you past the sanitarium, and that's rumored to be haunted by the ghost of Dr. Coffin. You'd think all this jibber-jabber about forks would make Shaggy hungry, but he generally seems quite spooked out about hearing about the ghost. So the gang plan to heed the good officer's advice. However, this well-placed lightning bolt, it strikes the Foster Road directional sign, and it points them towards the right fork. After driving for an additional hour, they realize they're lost. However, they spot an ambulance and they decide to follow it, as it must be going to somewhere civilized. Of course they're wrong, as it brings them right to the shady sanitarium. Oh man, another red flag, right? Like, you're gonna go see Dr. Coffin at the shady sanitarium? You better wise up, right? Velma thinks that it's more odd, though, that the ambulance is admitting patients with it being such a dark and stormy night. Curious as the gang tends to be, they get out of the mystery machine to look around, and they're accosted by two vicious guard dogs. So the guard dogs, they chase Scooby and Shaggy up in a tree, and then suddenly, out of the blue, the guard dogs just kind of turn into puppies, and they lose their fighting spirit and they waltz off. So the gang, they knock on the door of the sanitarium, and they're greeted by Dr. Tewksbury, who's the former assistant to Dr. Coffin. And he's a friendly Canadian. He says, you know, guys, why don't you come in for dinner? If they only visited the sanitarium today, in this day and age, they could have just looked up the Google reviews and noticed the poor reviews for the sanitarium and gotten the heck out of there. But no, the gang, they go in instead. And they inquire about the guard dogs because they don't want to be attacked. And these guard dogs, Dr. Tewksbury tells them their names are Cuddles and Snookums. And they used to belong to Dr. Coffin, and Dr. Coffin used to like alter their mind with these with music, with organ music that he'd play. And this is the same organ music they heard while Scooby and Shaggy were up in the tree that kind of made the dogs gentle again. And the music they did hear was actually being played by the ghost of Dr. Coffin. So they have some din-dins at the shady sanitarium, and over dinner, the doctor, Tewksbury, he explains that patients, they keep arriving at the sanitarium. However, before he can even attend to them, they disappear. He thinks is that Dr. Coffin keeps nabbing them in their sleep or during the admittance process, and Dr. Coffin's experimenting on them with his brainwave tests. Always up for a mystery, Velma, Freddy, Daphne make the decision to spend the night to see if they can get to the bottom of what's going on here. So splitting up with the boys in one room and the girls in another, the boys catch Dr. Coffin outside their window. This leads to Scooby finding a secret passage into a room containing a giant mirror that Freddy believes is used as a solar furnace. So the way it works is that, the sky opens up and it lets in the moonlight or the sunlight, and then it hits this mirror, and the mirror kind of concentrates it like a magnifying glass would into like a hot beam, and that produces heat, which acts as a furnace. But if you remember before, it was dark and stormy, and now it's just clear skies, so maybe they're just in the calm of the storm. I don't know. It's a cartoon. Why get too picky? Daphne and Velma, they're awakened from their sleep from some strange noises, so they look at their windows and they see paramedics bringing another patient into the hospital, and the patient, as Velma describes, looks dead. Or not even alive, I guess. So they meet up, Velma, Daphne, Freddy, Scooby, Shaggy, and they decide to follow the ambulance to see what's going on with that, and the ambulance kind of disappears into a deep chasm around the falls area, and the Mystery Machine can't make it any further due to a bridge being knocked out by the stormy weather. Shortly after losing the ambulance, Dr. Coffin appears on the cliff and mocks the gang with his laughter. Frustrated, the gang head back to the sanitarium to get some rest, and they go, we'll solve this case in the morning because we're just tired and we're done with this. But their sleep is quickly interrupted as Dr. Coffin starts playing the organ again, and that puts Scooby into a trance. The rest of the gang dash to the organ room where they find Scooby dancing with the guard dogs. Shaggy yells at Scooby to wake up out of his trance, which works, but it also wakes up the guard dogs, and they start chasing after the gang. Caught in a panic, the gang gets separated, and the Mad Doctor also takes chase. So Scooby and Shaggy, they find themselves in a room with hundreds of wigs, and then they end up in Dr. Coffin's lab where he chases them around as well. Freddy, Daphne, and Velma, they find the morgue where they discover patients that are being admitted are just piles of gold bars on a gurney with a wig tossed on top to make them look like a human being. Clearly, this has been a ruse for the paramedics to smuggle gold. Dr. Coffin finally catches Scooby and Shaggy and tosses him into his ambulance. Always quick to the chase, Freddy and the rest of the gang decide to follow Dr. Coffin right to a mine, which is full of gold bricks, and they're being wrapped in a bread packaging machine. Another chase ensues by mine carts, and Dr. Coffin and his henchmen fall into the bread wrapping machine, where they're spit out and restrained by the bread wrapping packaging. So who is the ghost of Dr. Coffin? Well, the gang unmasks Dr. Coffin in the presence of a Mountie, and it's revealed that is Officer Oldfield, the Border Patrol officer. But it's not actually the real Officer Oldfield, it's a guy posing as this officer. And he's not an employee of the Canadian federal government. The entire time, this officer was using guard dogs and the ghost of Dr. Coffin to scare pesky people away from discovering his gold smuggling operations. You see, in Montreal, this ringleader, he stole millions of dollars worth of gold about a month ago, and his plan was to smuggle gold as close to the US-Canadian border as possible by disguising it as mental patients. He did this because, the Mounties were looking for this gold, and if you ever got pulled over, having some gold in your truck might be a little suspicious. So if it's disguised as patients, it might not be a problem. And then at the sanitarium, using that solar furnace, they'd melt the gold into bricks, and then they'd wrap it and disguise it as bread. And then they'd ship it across the border. To celebrate their victory in solving this mystery, Scooby starts dancing with Daphne. However, the guard dogs frighten Scooby off when they wish to cut in.
That wraps up this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more episode reviews. Like I said before, we'll probably do one a week. Until next time, bye-bye.